Welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast, where we talk with the people behind the current events and breakthroughs in brain implants in an understandable way, helping bring together various fields involved in neuroprosthetics. Here is your host, Laden Yurachek.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Neural Implant Podcast. Today's guest is Israel Gasperin, and he's the founder and CEO of Zentrela, which is the standard for measuring cannabis consumer experiences. We met at Neurotech Leaders Forum, and this is just a really interesting idea, basically using EEG, wearable neurotechnology, to be able to measure what's going on in a cannabis experience. Israel, pleasure to have you on the show. Do you want to describe yourself better than I just did?
It was very accurate, the description, Ladan. Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. Israel Gasperin here, founder and CEO of Zentrela. Yeah, so we have been working on this technology for about 7 years, and I'll be happy to tell you more about it if you wish, Ladan. So let's get it started.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we're talking about marijuana. We're talking about getting high, right? What are you measuring, or what's the reasoning behind this?
Yeah, so I guess the core point here is to start by describing what is the problem that we are trying to solve. And I think it's very straightforward for everyone who has tried cannabis before or who is into the cannabis industry. And that problem is the lack of reliable information about cannabis effects. When you go to a legal dispensary, or if you are with your friends and you are about to try cannabis, the truth is that nobody knows exactly what type of effects you may experience after trying that product. And the reason of that is there are a couple of reasons. The first one is because number one, there didn't exist a way of measuring the effects of cannabis. That needs to be, and that is related to the fact that cannabis affects people differently depending on how much cannabis you consume, what type of cannabis or strains you consume, and the cannabinoid properties that you are using. Who are you as an individual? What are your gender, your BMI, how you are feeling at that time in point, but also where you are at. What is that occasion where you are using cannabis? So if you think about it, it's a multivariable problem that requires deep and very comprehensive research in order to start categorizing or characterizing this type of effects. Is this product going to make me feel energized, or will make me feel sleepy? Will I consume the right amount to get the right level of high that will be optimal for going out and hanging out with my friends, and I will avoid paranoia and anxiety or not? So all of this is like a bunch of uncertainties for the consumers. Now, when you talk about on the business side, it's a big problem that is negatively impacting the bottom line of cannabis producing companies, because today they don't know how to reliably formulate products or develop products and validate if they are creating the desired effects or the intended effects they were formulated for. The way they are doing it today is just by asking their employees or friends, hey, try this, let me know what you think. It's completely informal, it's not scientific at all, etc. And then if they are not able to internally validate in a reliable way what effects their products create and for what type of consumer, then they are heavily investing in producing thousands of units, committing to launch the product, distribution, warehousing, marketing, retail. And then at the end of the day, they have no idea who is their target audience, and they don't have reliable information that, or trustworthy information that consumers can use to say, okay, I really want your product because it will likely make me feel in this way. So that's the big problem here, because at the end of the day, these companies are losing millions of dollars when, all of these SKUs or products are never sold, and the regulations indicate that they need to destroy the inventory. They cannot do anything else but destroying it. And even for those products that sell well, still they are not able to communicate to the consumer why they are different or unique or better than many other products in the market that may look like their own product. So that's a problem that we are trying to solve. And then when about 7 years ago, when I was thinking about, or when I got introduced to this big market need, or that it was going to become a big market need, because here in Canada, it is federally allowed to use cannabis since 2018, but we started working on this since 2016. Back in that time, I was analyzing this problem, and what I realized is that the issue is that there didn't exist a way of measuring the effects of cannabis. On one side, you have psychological tests, the drug effect questionnaire, subjective test that I guess under very controlled setups and larger scales of data could become reliable by eliminating outliers, etc. But also, we also understood that the existing drug test for THC, which is the psychoactive compound of cannabis or any other substance, they do not really measure the effects that they create on the brain, right? If you use cannabis that contains THC and you use it today, maybe tomorrow you will continue testing positive in a saliva, urine, blood, or breath test, because THC remains in body fluids for hours, days, or even weeks post-consumption. So when you use it to try to characterize, I don't know, level of impairment or level of intoxication or how high you are feeling, it's completely unreliable, because you don't know if you were high or you are high, as an example, right? And that applies to every other cannabinoid that you may consume, like CBD or CBN, CBG, etc. So when we understood this problem, we believe that the way of solving it from the root was to target the brain. And then when we were analyzing the approach of studying the brain in order to reliably characterize cannabis effects, what we found out is that there is a lot of cannabis effect research out there, several publications indicating how THC or CBD impact certain areas or regions of the brain. But the challenge was that in all of these small studies with 15 subjects, 30 subjects, what neuroscientists were finding were only applicable to that small group of test subjects. It was only done through basic brain signal analysis techniques, right? Oh, the alpha power increased or decreased and kind of things like that. And so by putting together all of these kind of pieces of challenges, what we thought is, okay, what if we start conducting large scale research with cannabis consumers, and we use EEG technology to record their electrical brain activity? And then what if we combine neuroscience or brain signal analysis techniques with artificial intelligence? The whole logic and assumption behind that was, okay, everyone consumes cannabis and knows that something is going on in your brain. And brain signal analysis techniques show that the technology can detect those changes. The challenge is, it seems that these changes are so complex that humans are not able to really characterize these kind of complex patterns. So that's how we came up with the idea of building large data sets of EEG before and after using cannabis, and then applying AI to the brain signal the analysis that neuroscientists were conducting. And as a result of that, in 2018, we were able to develop the first algorithm that allows us to introduce this concept to the Ontario government, more specifically to the Ontario Centre of Innovation and the Ontario Brain Institute, in order to propose this new method for improving the investigation process of cannabis impaired driving. And in that way, mitigate the risk of making false accusations of saying that people are high just because they have THC residues in body fluids, or to confirm that they are actually high and they protect themselves from, lawsuits from drivers or employees claiming that they were not high. So they loved the proof of concept that we have achieved, and that's how we were funded in order to fully develop an MVP, minimum viable version for commercialization, which consisted of optimizing the wearable device continuing growing our databases of G in order to continue improving our AI predictions. And finally, and most importantly, conduct an independent study through a clinical research organization to validate the accuracy and the objectivity of our algorithm to characterize the levels of high that you experience after trying cannabis. And as a result, we started to commercialize this technology or invention a couple of years ago. And I'll be happy to tell you more about it, but I'll stop right now because I'm pretty sure there may be questions or comments about the trajectory so far.
Yeah, this is fascinating. I think this is a really good introduction to what you're doing. And yeah, it's really good because you're basically bringing a quantifiable measure to something that's very qualitative. And it does remind me a lot. Before we started recording, you said that you're in Hamilton, Canada, which is close to Toronto, which is close to the Niagara wine region. And so this does remind me a lot of wine and, oh, this one's good. And why does this wine cost, $10,000? Why does this wine cost $10? And it's people bring this qualities to this, but you're able to measure it. You're probably not the first person to put on an EEG head cap and get high. What is basically something that you see, or like, how did you get into it? What kind of differences do you usually see? And can you tell? I mean, you're saying that you can tell if people are high or not. What kind of confidence do you have? And what basically shows up in high people's brains?
Yeah, the interesting part here is that what we are what we are finding is, and by the way, full disclosure for your audience, I am an engineer, an inventor, an entrepreneur, but I'm not a neuroscientist. I have a team that is expert on that field. So if I don't use the right terms, don't misinterpret that. So yeah, the interesting part here, Dan, is when we are recording data, it's very difficult to interpret either visually or with basic brainwave signal processing techniques what are the actual changes. But just to give you an idea, and is the reality, when we apply AI, before that we have generated thousands of features or thousands of events that are happening in the brain, right? We have 8 electrodes placed on the frontal, temporal, parietal, and occipital lobes, left and right sides. And all of these features are characterizing the PSD and many other features that I don't even know how to describe because it's not my field. There are thousands of events happening in just 1 second. So when we characterize all of these features and then we apply AI, what AI is finding, it's a combination of features, more than 100 probably, if I remember correctly. Full disclosure, we don't have a logical or scientific explanation about what they mean. And we believe that the next wave of innovation in this area of research will happen when we start exploring, because we are exploring research partnerships with the top and respected neuroscientists in the cannabis space in order to share with them these kind of findings and maybe come up with new ideas or theories in order to understand and study how the brain functionality is altered after consuming cannabis. In other words, like the patterns that, or the combination of features that AI is finding is something that we haven't really focused on studying and trying to understand. It's a black box today that we know, and these external studies or independent studies show that are accurately and objectively characterizing the psychoactive effects, but we don't exactly know what they mean. It's a complex combination. Does that make sense, Laden?
Yeah. It's, again, like you said, 100 factors. That's just too much for the human mind to be able to grasp and to be able to meaningfully distinguish. But yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. I remember you had a success story. You had worked with a company. Is this something that you'd be able to share? And I really liked, they were going to do a product launch and then they changed it. Is this something you could talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. I will not disclose names, but we have multiple successful cases in the last couple of years that we have achieved based on the type of research that we are offering. Just a quick intro about our first commercial application. The reason why the government funded us was to use this for potentially for safety and law enforcement. But I realized that that never was going to happen. So we focus on exploring other kind of fields or other markets. And the lowest hanging fruit, as we call it in entrepreneurship, was the recreational cannabis market for multiple reasons. One is because the regulations to conduct research are way easier and accessible than conducting clinical research or commercializing this type of invention for safety and law enforcement. In the recreational cannabis market, there is a new field of research which is called non-therapeutic cannabis effect research. And for that one, you don't necessarily need to apply for a clinical trial as long as you don't do therapeutic claims. So this will heal you from cancer, or this will whatever, right? So that's the research framework that we have been using to serve the recreational cannabis market. And what we are doing is that in our lab, we are inviting cannabis consumers to bring their products to our lab and participate in our studies, where we accurately document what product they bring, how they consume the product, who they are as consumers, their BMI, gender, age, etc., what is their psychographic profile. And then after that, we collect their EEG and administer other subjective tests as well in order to record and characterize what is their mental state, or what is their state of being before using cannabis and after using it for several hours, depending on the project. And after doing that, and by doing that, we are able to characterize what is the onset time of the psychoactive effects, how strong is the intensity of the psychoactive effects, what's the duration, and what type of other mood changes were created by this product, etc. The outcome of that research is all of that information is what we license. We own all of that IP in order to provide this service at a very accessible and affordable price point to the industry. So because we invest in conducting all the research, and we just license the results to the producers. And we are sharing with them all of these insights for multiple benefits. The first one is, okay, I have several products in the market. I want to know what is the performance of my products versus other products in the same category, direct competitors of my products. So what we do is we characterize the effects of their products, they characterize the effects of the competing products, and then we objectively, scientifically, in a quantitative way, we show them your product is not performing as well as this other product. The other product makes you feel high within 10 minutes or 10 to 15 minutes. Yours is taking 20 to 30 minutes. It's creating this type of effects to the consumer, whereas the other one is making them feel in this way. And therefore, it's creating superior effects. The benefit for producers in this way is that thanks to this reliable kind of information, they make the decision either to discontinue their products and say, it's better to reallocate my budget in maybe reformulating the product, or discontinue it and coming up with a new formulation and then launching something new under a new brand. And in that way, they increase their likelihood of having a return of investment in doing that. The second way we help producers is by helping them to write papers, white papers, where we summarize the findings of our studies and then publish that in our portal. And by doing that, as an independent research organization, we are enabling cannabis producers to make trustworthy, but also regulatory compliant marketing claims about product effect characteristics. We, specifically in that case, we partner with a local cannabis producing company called Collective Projects. They have a great product in the market. It's a beverage, #1 SKU in Ontario. And we decided to partner. We characterize the effects of the beverage. We publish the results. And based on that evidence, based on this kind of neuroscience-driven research, proving the onset time of their beverage, within 2 weeks, they increased their sales by 7%. And they achieved record volume sales after executing a consumer education program. So what we did or they did was to educate bartenders or the retailers to speak about their product based on this scientific publication rather than providing their subjective opinion. They were engaging with consumers through their social media and many other kind of channels that they have to connect with consumers. And as a result of that, they reached record volume sales thanks to this specific campaign just about the onset time. So some exciting news are coming the next year with this brand, but that's the second way we help them. And then the third way that we are helping cannabis producers is that they have been asking us, okay, guys, this is great for commercially available products, but I want to tackle this problem from the root. I want to conduct this type of research at the R&D stage when I am formulating and testing different options. I don't have a reliable way of doing this type of product effect testing. Can you guys equip us with your neurotechnology and train us to follow your standardized research methodology so we can internally learn and how to use your technology and do this type of research internally? And we said, be my guest. Absolutely. And that's what we have been doing. It was one of the reasons why I was also in California back in that time, a few months ago. We were implementing this in one of the top leading cannabis producing firms, and you guys will know about it because they will start making some public announcements and running consumer education campaigns about it. But that's what we did with the first US client. We equipped them with the neurotechnology, we trained their team, and now they are internally adopting this type of research in a scientific, objective, quantitative way. And it's been a tremendous success right now. And just to conclude this point, Adam, this is the most exciting part for us because, as I said since the beginning, this is a huge and complex problem in terms of the volume of research that needs to be conducted, because it's a new field of research, it's an emerging industry. And what it excites us about this, what we call hybrid research model, where we equip our partners with the neurotechnology and we externally or remotely use the algorithms to characterize effects. It's a very scalable and agile and affordable research model that I truly believe that it is already, but it will be very clear the disruption that will create in this field by you approaching this model in order to completely change and optimize the way cannabis producing companies run their business, and do it in a better way. I'll stop right there because I get too excited.
No, that's really exciting. I think this is good. And like you said, it brings legitimacy to this and they're excited they can use it in marketing. Okay, so how many people have you had come through your labs and run through your system? What kind of data set do you have? And then this was a question that I had for you in California. Who was the most high out of everybody, out of X number of people?
Right. So as of today, or as of a couple of months ago, when we were trying to measure the size of our database, like we have more than 20,000 EEG recordings as of today. And as you may appreciate in this field, is not a low number. An average study is for about 30 subjects, etc. We have like about 20,000 recordings. Now, not every recording is equal to one single person. In terms of individuals, we have many hundreds, probably getting above 1,000 different type of test subjects who have participated in our study. So like the database is super rich in terms of human factors, like diversity of human factors, also the diversity of products. They have been bringing gummies, chocolates, beverages, pre-rolls, vapes, and then all of these products have different properties or amounts of THC and CBD and cannabinoids, etc. So the database is super rich.
And the 20,000 sessions, how many are yours?
Probably the first few were mine. I was like, okay, this is a concept. This was 2016. And I was like, okay, this is a concept. Let's figure out if this works. It's all for science, okay? So I was applying an EEG device to myself, It recorded my brainwaves before smoking, and then I was smoking, getting super high, and I was barely able to click on recording again and recording my brainwaves. That literally, that's how this started, and I did that like a few times, and I come up with the first kind of data set for me and at an individual level. And that's how we got a little bit excited, because it was very clear. It's very obvious. At an individual level, you will for sure find, even with basic brain signal processing techniques, you will identify clear changes, because it's only one type of brain, right? But that's how everything started. But in terms of who has been the most high in our research, one of these guys consumed an edible that the producer wanted to know, okay, how well my product does versus the competition. And this product was not the best, and it was making consumers hallucinate. And this guy was so hilarious, because he was telling us that he was the son of the sun, and that his mother was the moon, and that he has found, reason why we humans exist, and what is the origin of humans, and all of these kind of crazy stories that we were like, wow, they really need to discontinue this product. And then 1 year later, we received a very nice note from the producer saying, hey guys, thank you for this research. It has illuminated us to make a decision of discontinuing it and coming up with a new formulation and launching new edibles under a different brand. And we were like, good for you, because this was never going to sell well.
Unless people want that.
Yeah, but it was I think that there are different, I have seen people enjoying that type of hallucinations, where, especially on the creative side, and it allows them to see and visualize things, project things that they want or enjoy. But in this case, this guy was not really the most happiest person in the world when he was under that experience. Now, just to conclude on this point, Ladan, that we haven't seen acute levels of high or intoxication or stuff like that, because we only conduct research with legal products, right? And legal products have a limited amount of THC or cannabinoids. So the likelihood that someone has a very adverse reaction is really, really extremely low. We have never had that. It's just people feeling hallucinating in that way, or feeling dizzy, or feeling anxious, or a little bit paranoid, things like that, but nothing super crazy compared to what we used to see before the legalization, where you just used to eat a brownie and you had no idea what was the total amount of THC, and then people were going crazy. So nothing like that has happened.
Wow. Yeah, I think this is good. And legalization is something, I think it's great. I think, again, it brings things under good standards. And unfortunately, here in the US, we have some very schizophrenic laws. It's legal at the state level, but the federal level, it's not. And so it completely messes things up. And you can have raids on legal stores and everything like this. It's pretty crazy. But Israel, you've been working on this for 6 years. What do the next 6 years look like? What's coming up for you guys?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ladan, and I get very excited about this, because my prediction, my visualization is that we are going to continue disrupting the cannabis research space by developing more or training more AI models that not only characterize the psychoactive effects of cannabis, but also help us to predict the full range of cannabis experiences that you have after trying a product. And the goal is and I believe that in the next 6 years, we will discontinue drug effect questionnaires and psychological tests with one single year recording. It will be that easy. Potentially, there will be a consumer version for consumers, where you will be able to directly apply it to yourself, and we will be able to predict, hey, you are this type of consumer, you should avoid X amount of THC in order to avoid unpleasant effects and enjoy something really great. That is a possibility. So, if or when that happens, I believe that there will also be a second wave of disruption in the cannabis retail space. Because if you think about it, today, the way you buy products is just completely, it doesn't make sense. Again, in order to reliably know what type of effects you may experience, you need to take into consideration who you are as a consumer, how you will consume a product and what type of product you will use. Today, the cannabis retail stores are just taking into consideration one of the three main variables. They are just telling you what are the properties of a cannabis product, but they don't tell you, or they don't take into consideration what happens if you consume X amount and at what pace, and what is the consumption method, and what happens depending on what type of consumer you are, BMI, age, gender, psychographics, etc. So with the databases that we are building, we believe that we are going to come up with algorithms that will be able to predict what type of effects products will create based on who you are. And the vision is that down the road, you will access an online, like digital or online cannabis store, and you will say, or you will create your profile, or you will start answering a few questions about you. And based on that, you will be asked what type of experience you want to accomplish. And based on that, it will reliably filter and just show you the products that will likely, scientifically proven, will likely deliver that experience to you. Right now, it's just, here is everything, be my guest, choose whatever you want. So I believe that will be the second wave of the disruption that we will create with our intellectual property. And we are very excited. And finally, I think that what we have built is completely replicable to the therapeutic market. It's just that the level of complexity to do it is way higher in terms of the capital that will be required to now conduct clinical research. If we want to now start quantifying pain reduction or other kind of potential therapeutic benefits, for that, it will be required clinical research. We will need capital in order to start developing that specific field. But I believe that it will happen as well, because it's the way I see these opportunities, that the brain is like a black box that is, everything is here, and it's just about learning how to decode it. And now, thanks to AI and neuroscience, it's possible to do it in a feasible, accurate, reliable way. And I think that this will continue changing many other industries. So that's the vision for the next 6 years.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Yeah, I'm imagining some kind of Amazon store or something like this, and it has a little bar that changes depending on what you put in your age, weight, and everything like what you were saying, and it can change according to that. And again, like you said, based on 20,000 sessions, and so there'd be a nice data set supporting that, and then maybe even sending it out monthly, like a subscription box or something like this. That would be pretty cool, and you could try out different things. It's very exciting. I think it's got a nice future, and hopefully you can have lots of success. What are some challenges? What are some challenges that are stopping you from creating this?
Yeah, so there are a couple. The first one is regulatory challenges, as we have been mentioning, and everyone knows it's an emerging industry. For example, the type of research model, the hybrid research model that we were implementing in the States, in California, it hasn't been possible to implement in Canada because there are different regulations here, and Health Canada didn't allow this type of research here. As of December the 9th, I think, they changed the regulation. So now that is possible, but this type of regulations are sometimes prohibiting or limiting the speed of growth or adoption of our neurotechnology. That is one challenge. Another challenge is, I'm surprised that still there is a little bit of a stigma to cannabis, and that is another barrier for, generally speaking, growing the industry, and therefore that has a direct impact in what we are doing. The third kind of challenge is this is completely new, Ladan. If you think about it, the way we characterize alcohol impairment is reliable, but is not the most possible accurate way. Because you may be a heavy drinker and you may have more than X percentage of alcohol in your body, and using that metric to determine if you are impaired while driving is not the best one. It should be something correlated to your cognitive ability to drive. And if you when you think about it, that's what we are trying to do. in the case of cannabis, it's a different scenario because it's not reliable measuring that substance in body fluids. It's very unreliable. And that's why this disruption is happening with cannabis, but it's completely replicable to any other substance. Instead of measuring how much alcohol you have in your blood or breath, we should be able to say, okay, with this EEG analysis, you are not cognitively impaired to drive, so you should be able to do it. Like that's a kind of a vision I have about like a potential application for safety and law enforcement. So but my point is that this technology is so new for people outside this industry, that it takes time to create adoption. What we call in entrepreneurship evangelization is the barriers, and we are pioneers in this field, and that has been a natural and expected barrier. Every time that I speak about what we are doing with a new type of stakeholder, I can see the whole process. Okay, step one is this is bullshit. Step two, we start explaining what we do. We show our peer-reviewed papers. They start getting involved in this field. And then there is where it creates awareness of what we are doing. And then now the possibilities start happening. So I think that those are the main barriers that we will need to continue dealing with in the next few years, but totally fine.
Yeah, that's great. I think I wish you the best. I hope it's going to be good. Israel, is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to mention?
I think that it was a great conversation, Ladan. I will just invite your audience to follow me on LinkedIn. Is the platform that I used in order to share with my network what we are doing at Zentrela, great achievements and milestones and exciting news about our neurotechnology, publications, partnerships, etc. So I will invite you to follow me. My complete name is Israel Gasperin Has. Maybe you can share it like in the podcast information, and I welcome the information to connect with anyone that is interested in this field. We are always happy to explore partnerships with researchers. Machine learning scientists is something that we are constantly looking for. And yeah, happy to connect with anyone that is interested to learn more about this Zentrela.
Yeah, this is great. Well, yeah, this has been excellent. I've enjoyed this. This is a fun look at what neurotech can do. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Ladan. It was a pleasure to be here.
Hope you enjoyed the show and were able to learn something new, bringing together different fields in novel ways. Until next time on the Neural Implant Podcast.